So let's talk about a book, but not just any book. We're talking about a mysterious, ancient grimoire that connects the dots between occult magic and the highest levels of modern finance. It's an absolutely wild story about forbidden knowledge, the insane quest for power, and of course, the terrible price you have to pay for it.
All right, so picture this. It's October 2024. We're at a secret, very exclusive auction in Manhattan. The item on the block is an old anonymous manuscript. And this number, right here, $4.3 million. That was the final hammer price.
You heard that right. Can you imagine? The 12 bidders, and we're talking representatives for Russian oligarchs, Silicon Valley tech gurus who are deep into the occult, they could only look at this leather-bound book through bulletproof glass. They were throwing millions at a secret they couldn't even hold in their hands. None of them knew its official name for sure, but you can bet the whispers in that room were all saying the same thing. Picatrix. A legendary book that supposedly gives you the power to control the stars, to literally write your own destiny. But, as we're about to find out, a promise like that always comes with a catch, a big one.
Okay, to really get the power and the danger of the Picatrix, we have to go back in time. Way back, almost 1,000 years. Because before it was this infamous Latin grimoire, it started as an Arabic text with a very different name, Ghait al-Hakim. And that translates to the goal of the sage.
I mean, just look at the journey this thing has taken. It's incredible. It starts as the secret manuscript written in total fear by a scholar in the 10th century, then it crosses cultures, gets a new name, and 1,000 years later, it's a multi-million-dollar prize for some modern billionaire. What a history. So who is the guy who wrote this? A man named al-Qurtubi, a brilliant mind living in Cordoba, which was this huge center of learning. But it was also a place with brutal intellectual suppression. I mean, if you deviated from the official line, you could be executed. After he literally watched a fellow philosopher's books get torched by his own students, al-Qurtubi fled to Baghdad. And there, he just dove into all the forbidden stuff and compiled what he learned from over 200 occult books into this one masterwork. A book so dangerous, he didn't even dare put his name on it. So, what's actually in the book? Well, the first part lays out the whole philosophy of astral magic. Al-Qurtubi believed that every planet sends out these rays that influence everything on Earth. You know, Jupiter for wealth, Mars for war, and so on. The whole theory was, if you could just capture those forces at the exact right moment, you could control pretty much any event in your life. But then, as you get deeper into the book, things take a really dark turn. The high-minded philosophy gets replaced with, step-by-step ritual instructions. We're talking about spells for getting rich that involve burying enchanted objects and summoning rituals that use blood to call on ancient entities or jinn to do your bidding. And this is where you see the huge spiritual problem. Islamic scholars saw this path as shirk, basically polytheism, which is a massive sin. See, the book teaches you to ask for power from created things, like stars and talismans. The spiritual path, in contrast, teaches you to rely only on the one creator. It really boils down to a fundamental choice. Do you seek control through rituals or through faith? So for centuries, the Ghait al-Hakim stayed this kind of underground text in the Arabic world. But its journey took this dramatic twist during the Spanish Reconquista, when it crossed cultures and got completely transformed into something new. You have this Christian king, Alfonso X, who becomes completely obsessed with this idea that his Muslim enemies have some kind of secret cosmic knowledge. He was determined to get that power for himself, so he brought together a team of Jewish scholars who could speak Arabic, Latin, and Hebrew to translate these forbidden books. And in the process, they didn't just translate Ghait al-Hakim. They added their own spin, bits and pieces from Kabbalah, and created the legendary and infamous Picatrix. And from there, the Picatrix just spread like wildfire through the halls of European power. It was officially banned by the Vatican, of course, but you can bet they were studying it in private. It became a go-to guide for the powerful Medici family in Italy, and it was literally the personal playbook for John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth I's court astrologer. This was the secret text behind some of the most powerful people in history. Okay, now hold on, because this is where this ancient story crashes right into our modern world. That ancient formula for controlling reality, it hasn't gone anywhere, it's just evolved. Today, you can find its core principles being used not in some dark occult ritual, but on Wall Street. The parallel is just stunning when you lay it out. The Picatrix ritual has 3 basic parts. First, you need the perfect celestial moment. The planets have to be aligned just right. Second, you make a physical talisman to capture that energy. And third, you channel a raw planetary force into it. Now look at high-frequency trading. It's the exact same pattern. First, traders find the optimal timing, a moment of perfect market volatility. Second, they create their talisman, a complex financial instrument, like a derivative. And finally, they channel a force into it, not from the planets, but in the form of massive amounts of cash and data. It's the same 3-step formula, just with a different vocabulary.
The economist Yanis Varoufakis actually has a name for this: algorithmic alchemy. It's this idea that complex financial algorithms can just create billions of dollars out of thin air. In milliseconds, these systems spot tiny market wobbles and execute trades that make a fortune. And who pays the price? Well, often, it's the everyday investors whose retirement funds get caught in that digital crossfire. It's modern magic, and it's not always for the better.
So that brings us back to where we started, the billionaire who dropped over $4 million on the Picatrix. He got his hands on the ancient key to controlling his own destiny. So the big question is, did it work? Did he actually get the ultimate power he was looking for? The short answer? Nope, not even close. In a turn of what you'd have to call cosmic irony, the guy who bought a book to control his fortune invested that very fortune in crypto, and then he lost everything in the crash. The man who wanted to be the master of the universe ended up the master of absolutely nothing.
And his downfall was fast. His angry investors were hunting for him, so he fled to Dubai and went into hiding. The Picatrix itself was eventually recovered, and it's now sitting in the British Museum. But right before he vanished, the billionaire posted one last very telling message online. And there it is, his final admission. He really thought a created object, a book, could give him power over the entire cosmos. But in the end, he learned that 1,000-year-old lesson the hard way. Real power, real providence, it doesn't come from a talisman or an algorithm. It comes from a source that is much, much greater. That's a devastating psychological price to pay for forbidden knowledge.
And all this really leaves us with one last question, right? We've swapped out enchanted objects for complex financial algorithms. The tools have changed for sure, but has that fundamental human desire to bend reality to our will, to find a shortcut to ultimate control, has that really changed at all? It seems like that quest is as timeless and as dangerous as it's ever been.